And I'm here today, filling in for Phil Sussman, to talk to you about emergency services sector cybersecurity best practices. A little bit about who Norwich University is, or NUARI. That's the Norwich University Applied Research Institutes. We are a nonprofit corporation aligned with the university, and our mission is to do research for critical national security interests. So cybersecurity, information warfare, distributed learning, um, microgrid electrical power generation, a whole bunch of um, really kind of cutting edge defense research projects. That's what we've been doing, and we've been doing that now for 20 years. We started out under legislation sponsored by Senator Leahy back in 2002. And we're very happy that we're co-located with Norwich University because that gives us access to faculty uh, research that's going on inside the different departments within the university and professors like myself. So today we're going to talk about the who, what, and why of cybersecurity. And then what can we do about all this gloom and doom? And yeah, the first few slides will probably be lots of gloom and doom, but there's silver linings. It's not all bad news. There are things you can do to protect yourself and to not be a victim. So here's the gloom and doom slide, and it is a wall of text, but we'll run through it. There are threats. And emergency service providers, emergency service, you're no different. You're not special. You are special, but you use the exact same technology that everyone else uses. Windows, Linux, Mac, Cisco, Palo Alto, right? The vendors are all the same. The software is all the same, whether you're a bank, a hospital, an ambulance service, a fire department, and we all have the same vulnerabilities and we all have the same threats. And there's a spectrum of threat. Uh, when I first got into this business, everyone was worried about the hacker, right? I always remember the Justin Long character from that last Die Hard movie, right? He's in the back of the van with a laptop and he's doing things and causing problems. We've evolved over the years, and we've learned, thanks to folks like Mandiant, the security provider, that there are these things called advanced persistent threats, or APTs. And you'll hear about these in the news. They are actors who are doing bad things to good people, and they get categorized and they get associated with their source country. So if you're really interested, there's the Mandiant report on APT #1. You can Google that. It's been around for many years, but it is a brilliant piece of um, reporting and analysis and intelligence, military quality intelligence work that pinpointed these threat actors running these types of attacks and shooting these types of malware uh, salvos at targets are actually associated with the People's Liberation Army. And if you read the APT1 report, they give you pictures of buildings, pictures of people, where they're located. There are many APTs. There's a couple of websites that catalog all of the numbers, and we could go through them all. I'm not going to take that much time today, but if you hear about APT 33, 35, those are actors in Iran. 37 and 38 are the North Koreans, and then APT 29. If you see that in the news, those are Russian threat actors. The interesting thing about cybersecurity and operating in and through cyberspace is you can't really pin. It's the attribution problem. We call it the attribution problem. It's really hard to pin APT 29 to Russian government actors. In cyberspace, the malware all looks the same. The traffic is moving through your routers and your firewalls and web pages. It's really hard to see if that's a militarized activity or just a criminal, or, right, rewind the clock 20 years ago and that angry teenager in their mom's basement. In the kinetic warfighting space, it's really easy. The F-35s up in Burlington have big VT painted on their tails, and it's really easy to tell those are Vermont jets versus Russian jets, which have a big red star on the tail. Unfortunately, malware authors and APTs, they don't provide that kind of signage and that kind of those kinds of indicators. There has to be a lot more detective work for that to happen. In addition to APTs, we have denial of service. And these DDoS attacks are very popular. Oh, I'm getting some feedback. And what they will do is they'll shut you down. So remotely or using ransomware, your organization just comes to a grinding halt. All the stuff you need computers for, you can't accomplish. And this has been around for a long, long time. The Russians used this very effectively in their 2008 campaign against the nation of Georgia. They created denial of services on multiple levels and multiple systems before they started doing anything militarily on the ground. The power company, they started losing control of their grid. And oh, by the way, that website, our Green Mountain, I'm in Randolph, so I have Green Mountain Power. When my power goes out, I get on my phone, I go to the webpage, hey, my power's out. That webpage wouldn't respond. The 1-800 my power out, that rang busy. And all of that happened prior to the Russians invading Georgia, so that there would be no power and there would be no way to restore power. Again, a very common style attack, that denial of service. And then we look at connectivity and digital technology, this last bullet on the bottom. And we look at sensors. This is that Internet of Things that creates all sorts of opportunities and streamlining workflows. And we have all of these wonderful devices, right? I just I bought a brand new oven a couple months back, and I get an email every time it needs to be cleaned. And that's, hey, it reminds me to clean the oven. But those devices also have vulnerabilities, right? Someone could theoretically, and I'm not saying that you can do this, but if there's a vulnerability in the oven and someone can hack into the oven, well, there's software in the oven that shuts it off if it's been on too long. If that software suddenly forgets to shut the oven off, you're on broil for 14 hours. That's going to damage something or potentially cause a fire. So these connectivity and new digital technologies that are leaking their way into organizations in something as innocuous as an oven in the break room, or could be closed circuit TV cameras or those kinds of things, are introducing more risk into your systems when they're supposed to be helping you out. So this is a cycle. This is, you have actors, criminals, hacktivists, and your local geopolitical groups. And they also work together. That's another bad news story here. Cyber criminals will often do a bunch of exploitation and exploration, and they'll find problems, and then they'll turn around and sell that to an APT. So if the North Koreans are really interested in breaking into healthcare systems, and a threat actor, a criminal actor, has done that work already, they may just turn around and sell that data. So there is a black market for this information. They don't work alone, unfortunately. There's opportunity though. So there are ways to protect yourself and your organization. We're going to talk a lot about cyber hygiene and asset management, the concept of defense in depth, creating layers uh, within your organization, both logically and physically, so that you don't have all of your data in a central server that everyone has access to, because that makes life faster and easier. Um, that's not defense in depth. That's kind of a very flat, vulnerable network. We saw that with Sony. The Sony PlayStation network was architected that way. Our friends from APT 37 and 38 um, basically gave Sony a real black eye over Christmas back in 2000. I want to say that was 05, because they had a very flat network. They did not have firewalls connected to zones configured zones for different types of data. And then we have our capability. So we can build a robust cyber defense marketplace. There are common tools available, and there are skilled folks, but we need more of them. And that's one of the things we're doing at Norwich University, is trying to push out as many cyber security graduates as possible. And then when we look at the attack, um, how does this happen? Critical infrastructure, and we've seen these. We've seen critical infrastructure attacks. I mentioned Russia in the Georgia invasion in 2008. We've seen intellectual property theft. There's lots of examples in the news of companies losing access to intellectual property, or competitors in Asian nations putting out products that look fabulously or amazingly like American products. There's the whole create chaos, which we saw that last summer between the pipeline ransomware attack and then the meat packing plant. Who thought clicking an email and installing ransomware at a meat packing facility would cause empty shelves in grocery stores? But there's your chaos. And then our democracy. So it's fairly easy to see that today. Again, a couple of quick Google searches, and you'll see various actions and activities using these techniques to sow discontent and anger between groups. So that's the gloom and doom slides. What do we do? Well, trust no one. Implement zero trust, which is verify and monitor every login and every space. So I've a number of years ago, I've worked with organizations, and they would say, well, we're not going to protect our Wi-Fi, because if you're on campus, you're supposed to be on campus. If you're not on campus, and if you're on campus and doing something foolish, well, we've got public safety and they'll escort you off campus. So we're not going to lock down our Wi-Fi. Or once you're in the locked building, you can walk away from your computer and leave it unlocked, because you're in a locked building. What could happen? Well, lots could happen, right? There's a lot of different malware products and systems out there that take advantage of those kind of trusting open organizations or systems. So implementing zero trust, verify every contact, educate your employees. So one of the jokes I tell in one of my cybersecurity classes is, you can't patch stupid. And that's kind of pejorative and a little bit mean-spirited, but every organization is really only as safe as their weakest, highest risk employee. Sometimes that's your president or your CEO, right? The folks at the top are used to, hey, my iPad's broken, make it go. Or I just bought this cool new flip phone from Samsung, put it on the network. And the IT team is really not trained to tell no. But you have to tell the boss no sometimes. have to make sure that everyone understands what a phishing email is and what not to click on, right? And it gets hard. It is hard. They're getting better and better. It used to be really easy to see phishing emails, right? You've won the Spanish National Lottery, or I'm a Nigerian prince and I'm stuck on the International Space Station. Please send me your bank account information. They're much more subtle nowadays. They're using um, framing and other psychological tools in their toolkit to, it's called social engineering, to socially engineer you to respond. I saw one the other day. My friend and I were looking at it, and he clicked on it, and it's like, oh gosh, that's spam. And he goes, or that's phishing or a phishing attempt. And he goes, how could you tell? It's like, well, it says it's from LinkedIn, but the link that you're clicking isn't taking you to LinkedIn. It's taking you to a weirdly named something something something.io. That's not LinkedIn. But everything else looked like it was from LinkedIn, and they had just been on LinkedIn. They're like, gosh, I was just on LinkedIn, and I got this message saying you just left LinkedIn, or you just signed off of LinkedIn, and here's some information that you should look at. And they clicked the link. It was very, very cleverly done. But the more clever the bad guys get, the more we have to educate our user community. Two-factor authentication, right? That's if you've got it, you might be upset about it. Every time I log in to my Teams, I have to pick up my phone. Oh, can't see it. I have to pick up my phone and punch in my code off the phone into the keyboard. I have to have two things: something I know, that's usually my username and my password, and then something I have, which is my phone or my authenticator app. Sometimes it's a little token. I don't have any of those with me anymore. But it's a little token that there's a number that changes every 60 seconds, and you got to plug that number in. That two-factor authentication or biometrics, right? My Macintosh has the fingerprint reader, or my iPad. I can tap my little fingerprint on there, my finger on there, and it's only my finger that can unlock those. Um, Having that is very, very important. It's not enough just to change your password every 30 or 60 days. And then, right, that's just a pain. Your user community will revolt if you make them come up with a 20-character password with two upper characters, two lowercase characters, two numbers, two specials, 20 characters. Every 90 days, you've got to think up one of these things, and then you've got to try and remember it. I have a password wallet, again, on my phone because I can't do anything on any computer where I work without my telephone. So I have an encrypted password wallet that stores those that still make me use those really, really long passwords. The next to last bullet here talks about monitoring your employees' activity. And depending on your organization, that might be a sore point, but it's important to understand what your users are doing. I'm not saying you should be untrusting of your employees, right? You shouldn't be overly paranoid and suspicious of your coworkers. But from an IT perspective, from an information security perspective, it's important to understand what your users are doing. Not only because your users may make mistakes, or your users may violate policy intentionally, but they may be doing things that are unintentional. As an IT provider, your IT team may not be providing the services you need to accomplish your goal, right? If I'm trying to send a large file to a coworker and it's a mission critical, like this is part of my job, I have this really big file, I need to send it to a coworker, and we don't have SharePoint configured correctly, and I can't send it through Outlook. Well, I'll upload it to my private Google Drive, and I'll send you a link from my Gmail to your Gmail. Well, you've now taken company proprietary data, could be controlled data, and moved it to a third-party provider that's not protected by your IT security team, and your employee monitoring, your data access monitoring system will flag that, and then you can start to have those conversations about why did you need to use Google Drive? It's like, well, I had this really big file, and we don't have services inside the organization for me to move that kind of data to another employee. It's like, oh, well, we need to add that, or we need to change our processes to make that happen, right? A lot of times folks are not, right? They're not taking money from the Russians to damage your reputation. They just want to get their job done, right? It's it's a rainy Friday at 3 o'clock, and they just want to get this done and go home. They're not criminal, they're not evil. They're just want to get their job done. And so this monitoring of that will help identify those places in your organization where you may need additional services. And then the last bullet is patching, updating and patching, and that running machines without updating and patching is just asking for trouble. I should have looked it up. I haven't looked it up in a couple of months, but there's a organization that puts out a unpatched modern Windows system. So a Windows 11 system, it's unpatched. They connect it to the naked internet, no firewall, no software, and they wait to see how fast it gets discovered and then how fast it gets corrupted. And the last time I checked, it was about 7 minutes. So I took this machine, I unboxed it from Best Buy, I plugged it into the internet without any protections, and I turned it on. Within 7-ish minutes, one of these threat actors is going to know that machine's plugged in, and they're going to be launching malware against it to try and get in and see what it is. So it's important to stay patched. The longer you run without patching and updating, the more risk you're incurring. Other things you can do, not necessarily super techie. Sometimes they can be techie. They may look techie, but limiting sensitive data. That's the law of least privilege. What are the privileges I need to do my job? What are the sets of data I have to access? And then everything else I shouldn't be able to touch, right? I'm a faculty member, so I should see students' grades and their attendance roster. But I have no business in the bursar's office, right? I don't need to know if a student, all I really need to know is if the student's on financial hold or not. I don't need to know what their balance is or what their financial aid situation looks like. I don't need any of that information to teach classes. So I don't have it, right? I can't see any of the financial data for any of my students. Now, the accountants and the folks in the bursar's office at the university, they don't need to know grades. So they don't have access to any of the grading information. We have these zones of information. We privilege access management so that we can keep the information people need to do their job open and available, but everything else is not something they need to be involved with. And then surveillance and monitoring tools. We've talked a lot about surveillance as well, but just looking, right? Keeping an eye out for things. It's amazing the number of people I talk to, and they say, the Russians aren't going to deal with us. I had this conversation with my mom, right? She has a Macintosh, so she can do Facebook to see the grandkids. And every time I visit my mom, I log into her machine and I update it because she doesn't, when Apple says, hey, you should update your computer, she clicks no or cancel. Or if the computer is running slow and the auto updates are downloading, she knows enough to close that to make the computer run faster. And it's like, Mom, you can't do that. Your data is important. And she goes, there's nothing on this computer. It's just Facebook and pictures of the grandkids. And it's like, well, threat actors don't want pictures of my kids. Threat actors want your computer because your computer has a relationship with your internet provider. There's a trust relationship between your computer and your internet provider. There's a trust relationship between your computer and your bank and your computer and Facebook. And threat actors are going to use those relationships. They don't want pictures of my kids in my mom's email. They want the computer as an asset to work against other targets. So monitoring is important. Even if you don't believe anyone would be interested in your information, they are. And then our last bullet here talks about USB devices, connecting things that don't need to be connected. There's really no good reason for a commercial company to have their users charge their phones off their computer, right? It's really easy, right, to get a charging brick and plug it into the wall. Why do you need to, right? And that's because your phone, right? I've got my Android phone here. It's its own little supercomputer connected to the internet two different ways. And if I plug it into my work computer, I am now potentially putting malware from my phone into my PC. Thumb drives themselves, they used to be important. They're just not that important anymore. Most organizations have gone to SharePoint or OneDrive or Google Drive. There's a lot of easier ways to move data from place to place. Thankfully, the thumb drive, I think, is becoming a thing of the past, I hope. But you really should examine if you need them for business practices, and if you don't, then just don't let folks plug that stuff in. Remediation and readiness. So other things you can do, training. We talked a lot about training. You can run phishing scams. There are companies that will do this for you. You can pay a company to run a phishing engagement against your organization and see how many people click. And they have different levels. So they can start out with the, right, I'm a Nigerian prince stranded on the International Space Station. Send me $10. And when I get on back to planet Earth, I'll give you $1 million. All the way up to the really clever, hey, you were just on LinkedIn and I need you to do this, this, and this. Ransomware, so having people identify ransomware and what to do when ransomware happens. A plan. One of my favorite quotes from I think it's Benjamin Franklin said, "Those who fail to plan are planning to fail." A cyber incident response plan is what you are going to do when your organization has one of these incidents, when there is a piece of ransomware discovered on a machine, or hey, we went to our public facing website, and instead of a picture of our fire truck, it's all sorts of gobbledygook. It's terrible. We have to take the website down. The worst time to do incident response planning is in the middle of an incident. The crisis action planning is not going to serve you well, because you are going to be struggling to answer questions that you haven't thought about, right? Hey, we've got a website that is showing pornography to the general public, and now it's associated with our police department. Do we pull it off? Do we pull that down? How do we pull that down? Who do we call to change it? If we wipe out the pornography and put back the stuff that's supposed to be there, are we destroying evidence? There's many, many questions that are going to pop up. And in the middle of people hollering at you, and potentially lawyers calling you, and people looking up federal and state rules, because there are federal and state rules for what to do if you've been hacked based on the type of information that you have. If you have personal identifiable information and you lose control of that, in certain circumstances, you have less than 24 hours to tell the federal government, depending on certain contracts and that kind of stuff. In the military, it's 1 hour. If a military site loses PII controlled information, they have 60 minutes to report that to higher headquarters, or else they're in non-compliance and people can be punished. Of course, in the military, you can wind up going to jail. In the civilian sector, you'll wind up going to court. You'll have penalties to look at. And none of those things are things you want to think about in the middle of that response. So when something bad happens, I'm old school. All of my incident response plans are in 3-ring binders in paper. So no matter what system is causing problems or destroyed or responding irresponsibly, I go to the shelf and I pull the binder out and I open it up and I start with, okay, we've got a couple of different tabs for the different types of attacks: ransomware, DDoS, remote exploitation, employee rules violation. You go to that tab, you start working through the checklist. Every incident is unique, and your checklist might not be perfect, but it is some place to start, rather than just standing around the server farm trying to yell over the air conditioner, what are we going to do? And you didn't plug this in, and why didn't you patch this? And blame storms are fun to watch. They're no fun to be part of. How do you get to a plan? You exercise. So if you have a plan, if you don't have a plan, run a tabletop exercise. Get the different stakeholders to sit around in the conference room and say, okay, our website got defaced. Instead of the state of Vermont emergency management homepage, it's a picture of Fred Tuttle from the old Man with a Plan VHS tape saying something silly like, I like ice cream. Okay, well, what are we going to do? And then you go around the table and each of the stakeholders say, well, I would call the PR people. I would call our public affairs people or our PIO and let them know that we've got a public facing incident. I'd call our website provider, the IT person, like, well, that's our server. So I would go in and I would shut down the web server, or I would put up this page is not available at the moment, single web page. And then we would call the security team, and then the security team would start to walk through what they're going to do. But those tabletop exercises are invaluable. It shows what level of education the different stakeholders have. And B, it gives you that, well, we don't really have a plan for website defacement, or we don't really have a plan if that happens. Even if you're an organization with a very robust plan, tabletop exercises are super important to make sure that they work. A few years back, CDOT, that's the Colorado Department of Transportation, they were attacked, and one of their employees, and I went to one of the outbriefs, and the person briefing said that they were 20 minutes away from losing the entire state network. And we were like, wow, that's how do you know that? It's like, well, we looked at our response plan and we looked at our business continuity plan, and the business continuity plan said if you're a state employee working for transportation and you can't use your laptop in a building, but you have stuff that you need to do, there was a list of things, and payroll, timesheet, important things, then you should unplug your laptop and take that laptop to another state facility and plug that in to finish your day's work. And they had one of the DOT workers had unplugged their laptop, gotten in their car. They were driving, I think they were going to Pueblo to go to one of the other state government campuses. And they got there and they realized that all of the laptops were infected. And if that employee had plugged that infected laptop into Health and Human Services network, the whole that network would have also been compromised. So that's something a tabletop exercise will show you. You'll start to work your plans and then see, it's like, oh, I took my laptop and I'm going to go from, I'm going to go from Cherry Street. I'm going to get in the car, run down Route 7, go to Rutland, plug in at Rutland. Well, now wait, would that affect Rutland? And you run through that on your tabletop exercise and think through those. Again, you're doing this in a very calm, relaxed setting, right? It's not a bad idea to have refreshments when you're doing this, right? Donuts or coffee or juice or something, so everyone's kind of relaxed and thinking clearly. Um, the folks in Colorado were just lucky. They lucked out. They caught that lady in time, and it was one couple of the system administrators said, "Oh, no, 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 this is wrong. We can't do this part of the plan. Tell everybody to just go home." And then remediation. So when you actually run those remediation steps, you're prepared. You've got your plan, you've done your exercises. When something actually happens, you've got data from your monitoring tools, you know where the problem is, you have categorized the problem, you can remediate. You can also then start to think about what other things do we need? Do we need this goes more into business continuity planning, but that proactive preparation is setting all of that stuff up. If you have to, if you get horrible malware across all of your laptops and you wind up having to throw all of them away, or you have to suddenly get laptops out to your employees, what does that look like? Right? I don't, in resource constrained worlds, it's probably not going to be as easy as picking up the phone and calling the One Connection guys down in Merrimack, New Hampshire, and saying, "Hey, I need 50 new Dell laptops. Can you overnight those to me?" I Maybe there are organizations out there that could do that with their budgets. I don't know them, but that proactive preparation could talk about here are the 7 key people that have to be online no matter what. And if their laptops are broken, this is how we're going to get them connected, or these are the resources we're gonna set aside just in case. So that proactive preparation is super important. Oh, I'm hitting too many buttons too fast. So our response plan, what should be in there? We want to address specific threats. Not all threats are created equal, right? And we talked a little bit about that on our gloom and doom slide, right? There are still hacktivists and teenagers in their parents' basement. Do you respond to those the same way you would respond to a nation state? Certain threats deserve more oomph, more energy behind them. A simple website defacement. I know a lot of organizations, they don't even investigate those. If someone breaks in and defaces the website, they replace the contents of the website. And in fact, I know a couple of organizations that basically rebuild their web server every 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes, you're looking at a different brand new virtualized web server. And they're like, yeah, if we get defaced, we go into the virtual environment, we shut that server off, we spin up a clean one, and we call it good. So different threats will get different levels of response. Build and test that incident response plan. Create awareness through organizational strategy. So as you're building out services, as you're thinking about cloud, and thinking about cloud, I know that's a little dated. Almost everybody's already in the cloud, but a lot of organizations jumped into cloud, and then their security people said, "Hey, wait a minute. We used to have this defense in depth where we had a boundary firewall protecting the whole organization. Then we have an additional firewall protecting the really important stuff. Now we have this stuff sitting out here in the cloud, not behind any of our firewall rules. We just have to hope Amazon or Microsoft, we have to hope that we've configured Amazon and Microsoft appropriately. You know, that whole, oh, give it to the cloud, let the cloud guys worry about it. Well, they do. I mean, they're good. I'm not saying cloud people are irresponsible, but they have a level of security that may not match your requirements or your strategy. So coming up with that strategy is important. And then looking at your risks and understanding what risks you have, right? And this will really depend on the type of data you're processing. If you've got healthcare data, if you've got HIPAA data, you're at a different level of risk than an organization that just has personal identifiable information. And if you've got PII, that's one level of risk. HIPAA adds another level of risk. If you've got financial records, that adds another level of risk, right? I have friends who work cybersecurity in the hospital world, and I was like, wow, you guys, you run the gamut. You've got it all, and you've got their level of risk is much higher than well, the university, right? I've got FERPA, that's the Family Education Records Protection Act. I've got financial data. We've got PII data. Don't think we carry HIPAA. I hope we don't. Well, we have an infirmary on base on campus. So although UVM runs it, so maybe UVM's worried about that. But anyway, you've got to assess your risk, and then just because you don't think you're important doesn't mean you're not at risk. There's always threat actors looking to find ways into your organization, and you've got to balance the risk that you're taking with the convenience or convenience is the right word. The convenience that you're gaining from taking that risk. Um, we were doing a presentation on using simple hacking tools and searching things through Google, and over the summer, and we actually found a potable water management system that was not pass protected, connected to the internet. It was Google searchable. So we did a Google search for industrial control systems, water management, and we found an HOA that had 4 fountains that you could control from the internet with no authentication, and then we found a potable water system, and it had buttons for opening valves, closing valves. We contacted the organization. We were like, hey, please take this offline. But I'm sure at one point, one of their one of their IT people, or one of their process engineers said, if we put let's turn the web page on, because then anybody can check stuff from their phone, and it'll just make our lives easier. Well, it also puts them at a very elevated level of risk for shenanigans from the internet. And then a playbook. Having a playbook for those different threats takes the guesswork out. It creates a very smooth, streamlined response. Exercises. So this is a Nuari marketing page. Nuari has the Decide platform. That is a distributed exercise system that allows organizations to build an exercise, connect with the various stakeholders, get their responses to situations, get their reasons for making decisions, and then after the exercise is done, looking through those responses and either identifying gaps. Well, our website was so we're doing our exercise. Our website is defaced. It's somebody put up pictures of old Hanna-Barbera and it'll say, hey, it's the Flintstones. Well, it's not pornography. It's not criminal activity. It's not politically motivated speech. It's just good old Barney and Betty Rubble. Well, that's not in our response plan. And we had all these other response plans for really horrible stuff, and this simple thing happened. That could be a gap that you've identified. It's like, well, we really didn't plan for the web defacement. That's something we haven't planned for. Or maybe that happens and it is web defacement and you've got a plan for that, but the people engaged in the exercise, the stakeholders go, it's the Flintstones. And that web server is going to be re-imaged and rebuilt in the next hour. I'm deciding, I'm going to go into the Decide exercise tool and say, I'm not going to take an action. I think this is harmless fun. It's going to take care of itself in a couple of hours. I've got other things that are happening that I'm going to focus on. I'm going to leave that, a silly website defacement that's not really offensive to take care of itself when the server reboots. And then after the exercise, you can talk about that and say, well, why did you make that decision? It's like, well, I have 4 tickets in my queue and one is critical. And then, my phone rings and it's like, hey, there's silly cartoons on the website. It's like, are they offensive? Do we need to take the website down? No, it's the Flintstones. I'm going to decide to not take care of that. I'm going to take care of this. And then that's one of the beautiful things the Decide platform will give you, is that ability to have that discussion after the exercise and look through the data and understand people's decision-making process. And was that a good call? Could be a good call. And it could be, oh no, every time the website's defaced, we want to make sure we get to that.
Hey, Jack, I hate to cut you off, but we've actually reached the limit of our time with you today.
Okay.
So we do have Kevin Beal here from Norwich, and I've got his contact cards here, and we can put that up online, and maybe we can get your email address if people have any questions about your presentation today.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, Jack. Thank you, everyone on the line, for paying attention. Again, we'll get that contact information up on our website. Thank you so much.
Thanks, folks.